Etienne, is that you wear so many hats. You are an academic, you are a student, you've contributed to the music within our church, and you still have an active role as a deacon. I just want to know, how do you possibly balance all of these hats?
Firstly, I sleep very little, and coffee is an amazing thing. Caffeine is a wonderful substance. So I drink way too much coffee then. I'm allowed to, but let's not go there. For me, it all comes down to time management. You need to live a well-balanced life, and you need to split life in what we call here in science as binning. Bins is like you have, when you recycle, you have your paper bin, you have your plastic, you have your steel, your metal. So you need to identify what are all your activities. You have your schoolwork, you have your church, you have a social life, you have your job with your employer. Now, all of these bins, 0 to 100, and you need to give 100% in all of these bins at the right time. I'm now currently in my office and I have my piano in my office. So I like to combine my music with work. So there I kill two birds with one stone. And that's time management for me. So at all times, give your 100%. And remember, you're not competing with anybody else. You're only competing with yourself and with the person you were yesterday. That's your only competition. Give your 100% and even give your best. If it's not good enough, God will simply add the rest to you.
Thank you so much for that, Etienne. I agree 100%. It's always so that it almost feels like you have to start from the beginning again because you didn't give it your all the first time around. And I know it could sometimes be challenging for us as young people. Sometimes we just look for the cheaper or the simplest route to get to that end destination. I think that's a very good thing that you mentioned, just have that little bit of patience, and whatever you do, always do it 100%. Now, on to our next question, Etienne. Just from your experience, what has been the most challenging experience that you've had thus far, and what encouraged you to persevere through this?
The challenging experience in my life has not been the academics or social life, but it comes back to one important Bible verse, Matthew 22, verse 39. We've heard this many times in church. You hear it at school during assembly. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. What do we always focus on? Loving your neighbor, helping somebody else, making sure that your kid is fine, making sure that your brother and sister is fine. But sometimes we omit the second part, which is as you love yourself. Now, those are the very two important words. Love yourself. So what is self-love? That was the most important challenge in my life. Identifying who I am and loving myself, because you can help everybody, but what about you? It's like when you have a 2-liter Coke, you invite friends, you throw glasses for everybody. What happens? You're topping up their glasses, but you do not realize your glass is running empty. So you need to look after yourself and self-love. How do you look after yourself? By being physically healthy. Remember, God gave his son for us. His son gave his life for us. Jesus sacrificed his body for us. So please do not destroy your body with alcohol and drugs. Your body is a gift from God. Love yourself and know your self-worth. I read a lot. I do not watch a lot of television, but I read a lot. Now, there's two concepts that I came across. It's called scarcity and abundance mindset. So what is a scarcity mindset? What is scarcity? Scarcity means you're just settling for what life gives you, because you do not know your self-worth. This could apply to any fields in life. If you're in a relationship, you know this guy and this girl is not good for you. You're forcing a relationship. So this person is not right, but you cling on to this person. It could be this person. It could be a job. It could be any circumstances. You're clinging on to it because you think, this is who I am. Nothing better in life will happen. I must settle for this. No, don't settle. Know your worth and have the abundance mindset. God will provide you with much more. If you feel underappreciated in a friendship, relationship, family, employer, if your employer is not appreciating all the effort you put in, have the power to walk away. Walking away is a very powerful concept that I had to learn. Why? Because by walking away, you're releasing. If you hold onto a rope, that rope wants to get away, but you're now clinging onto this rope. It will do you more damage. because the rope is pulling away. You're gripping this rope. Simply let go, no more damage, and then you go your own way. That is the abundance mindset, having the power to know your self-worth and know to when to walk away from a wrong situation, because God's settling for just what life gives you. And know that you are very important in God's eyes, and let nobody bring you down or discourage you.
Important factors. I think something that stood out for me in that answer was not settling for less. You know, it's often so easy to do that and to forget your self-worth. You just accept it because this is what I have right now. Not working, constantly working on yourself and developing yourself. And maybe at this time, I'll just pose a question to our young people in our audience and anyone who's joined on our online platforms. Has there ever been a time in your life that you felt that you had to settle for less? You know, and what did you do? Was it perhaps a friendship that you were in? Was it in your career life or a relationship? And if you did, how did you overcome this? I would love to hear about it. At least you can think about it. You know, don't settle for less. I think at this time, whilst everyone is thinking about this, when was it a situation that they probably thought, no, they were worth less, be it in their jobs or personal experiences, like we've now posed to the audience. Etienne, I think this is a good time that I ask you, given your background, your expertise, as well as your accomplishments in life, I need to say this again, he's only 34. What advice would you give to a young person who is at a crossroad in their lives?
I've been a lot of places. I've seen a lot of faces, and I know what the world is about. I do a lot of reading. Person at the crossroads, just know. So I'm teaching lessons that I had to learn myself. Remember, you are here not to impress anybody. You are here. Surround yourself by like-minded people. If your friends are not aligned in what you believe in, let go. Surround yourself with people that has the same mentality as you. Now I'm going to split things up a little bit. Firstly, to the manskap, the guys. Guys, we are brought in South Africa to be macho. Guys, it is okay to cry. By crying, you release so much emotion and you feel much better after that. Do not let your friends say, overseas, it's normal for men to cry. Men need to show emotion. That's one thing for the guys. For everybody, never run away from your problem. If you run away, guess what? You tackle your problem head on. Identify certain role models, somebody you can look up to. Whether it's a sport athlete, Liverpool, boxer, I look up to. You need to look up to your parents, the organists in your congregation, the ministers. Look up to somebody, have a role model, have goals. Wake up in the morning, say, these are my goals, and stop at nothing to achieve them. Let nobody bring you down. For the senior youth, something that I've also learned, you need to save money. Guess what? Money makes the world go around. The younger you are, start investing as early as you can. So guys, it's okay to cry. Never run away from your problems. Youth, save your money. And this is just where I'm going to go a little bit off script. We need to tackle certain areas that goes in our community, but that is drugs, gangsterism, and gender-based violence. These things happen daily, but sometimes parents are too afraid to talk about it. Churches probably don't talk about it. But remember, you are not defined by your area. We study drugs. I know about Tuk, Dula, rocks, all of these drugs that are out there. These things are so easy to get, and parents need to know about these things. You can just chat somebody 5 minutes. You can just say, listen, I want 5 rands, drugs, whatever. It's so easy to get it these days. Just know you're destroying your own lives. These things are not worth it. And if you are caught in that circumstance, just leave it. And leave it today. Don't say, I'll leave it tomorrow. I'm not that bad. Please just leave it. Think about what you're doing. And remember, it's never too late to change. If you feel guilty about what you did in the past, God has already forgotten and forgiven you a long time ago already. So don't kill yourself worried about who I was yesterday. Remember, it's never too late to change, and change happens today. That is just my message for the young people. Change happens today. It's never too late. And God has for.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Etienne. I think I hang on to those words. It's such a mouthful, and it's so much for us, a lot for our young people to take away from this, especially when you say, find that role model. Have someone or something that you can look up to in life, and that will also help you keep direction of where you are going. I think before I let you go, Etienne, I would just love to ask if you have any closing remarks for this evening.
So, in conclusion, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Thank you, the Apostle, and for everybody that tuned in tonight. My closing remarks are just for the students, because I'm a lecturer. My students are currently busy with exams. So for everybody out there, the matriculants, please study hard. Grade 11s, till everybody, grade 10s, please study hard and stay motivated. Remember, what you put in is what you get out. Give your best. To share some information, I'm also a tutor for high school students. So please, I have a lot of old exam question papers, questions and answers, which I'm willing to share with you freely. So please just get hold of your local leaders, and then they will connect you with me, and then I can send you some old question papers from the grade 10 to grade 12 in physical science. That's physics and chemistry. So no problem. Please do not struggle. And remember, if you do not understand something, put up your hand and ask questions. Asking questions saves so much time. So never guess answers, know the answer. And with that, I just say thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for your time, Etienne. Before I sum up our session, I would maybe just like to reach out to Melissa and ask if there's been any comments on the online platforms this evening, anything else from our young people?
Comment as well. This is for the previous question on your definition of perseverance. Ilse Hendrik says that it is to achieve something despite the difficulties. Regarding the current question, if we can just give it a few more minutes, there was load shedding. So those comments are still coming in.
Thank you so much for that, Melissa. I think, Etienne, you have been amazing this evening, and we thank you for availing yourself and for sharing all of your knowledge and thoughts on perseverance. To our young people in the audience this evening, I know that it's often not easy to persevere, especially when we go through difficulties. But remember, like Etienne said this evening, don't lose sight of the goal. God has a plan for your life, and no matter how hard it seems. To me, on a personal note, perseverance means God's kept promises. And I know that He always delivers on His promises. With that being said, we will now cross over to our second session that will be done by our co-host, Adrian. I think one can often grow weary. We grow tired and ask, but when? But how? And I'm sure Adrian will be able to motivate you whilst he shares some insights from both a biblical and spiritual perspective on perseverance. Over to you, Adrian.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much, Bronwyn and Etienne, for that wonderful and inciting conversation that you've had. Today, I would like to just share with you some insight into the topic of perseverance from a biblical perspective. That goes with it, such as endurance and long suffering and things like that. Those are the type of words and the concepts that comes to mind when we think of perseverance. Now, when we think of on a spiritual note, we think of how have we persevered, or how is our endurance going? And here, I would like to maybe take a step back and we think of the promise that Jesus made to us. So when we think of this promise that Jesus has made, the promise that is made, for example, we can take from John 14, the verses 3, and it says, and And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And when we think of that, we think of Jesus' promised unto us. Now, 2,000 years ago, and now we might be asking ourselves, why am I waiting that long? It's been such a long time. We ask maybe, where is he? When is he coming? How much longer still? And while we are on this waiting period, we think of maybe, I don't know if you've ever seen the meme of Mr. Bean waiting. You see Mr. Bean is sitting over there and he is waiting. He's busy sitting there and waiting for someone to come. Sometimes that might feel familiar, or it might even look familiar. But the difference is that we don't wait in that manner. We have other struggles. Mr. Bean makes it look so relaxed while he's waiting there. But we go through such difficulties. We go through such challenges in our life. We go through these challenges in our spiritual lives. As if we are going through the most, we are going through difficulties. And when we go through these difficulties, we sometimes feel like giving up. We feel like, what's the point? Now, I think many of us as young people, we have experienced this and we've experienced these difficulties. But now I put a question to you as the audience, and for you to maybe strengthen your fellow young people. And I would like to ask you, what is your go-to verse when things are difficult, when you are going through these difficult challenges? And if you'd be so kind as to just share in the comments on the online platforms what verse you share, or what verse comes to your mind when you go through these difficulties. Now, one of the more interesting chapters within the Bible that maybe relates to us on terms of difficulties, we can think of the book of Romans. And within Romans, some theologians will even say that the Romans 8 is the greatest chapter in the Bible. And I would like to encourage you all, maybe later on after this discussion, that you maybe go and share, or go and read, I should say, go and read Romans 8, and then just go through it. But I will share a few of the key verses that stands out for us this evening. Now, when we think of Romans 8, the verse 35 to 36, it reads as follows: Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation, or distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or danger, or sword? Written, for your sake we are being killed all day long. We are regarded as sheep to be slaughtered. Now, this is a very vivid verse. It clearly shows that the writer Paul was relating to this tribulation and this difficulties and the stress and the persecution and the challenges that the Christian congregation was facing. And it shows there that they had to persevere through these challenges. They had to endure great difficulties and great hardship. And Paul also relates earlier on in Romans 5, the verses 3 to 5. And he says, and Paul is now specifically referring to these sufferings. He says, not only so, but we also glory. Suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And the hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into the hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. And that's such a beautiful verse, eh? It shows that through our perseverance, it produces character. This character is also builds the hope that God loves us, the hope that Jesus Christ is for us, that the Spirit has been given to us. When I think back now to the conversation between Bronwyn and Etienne, Etienne mentioned a few things that stood out for me. He says there about sticking it out, you know. He says, you need to work hard. He says, he even mentioned something like, you mustn't do things half-heartedly. And this is so wonderful that it shows that when we go through these difficulties and we push through it, it shows that we build our character. It builds our hope for the future. And I would like to show you another example, not just thinking of our dear deacon, we're thinking of an example of perseverance. And this example really, really paints the picture perfectly to us. Okay? When we think of the snail that made it onto the ark, just imagine how that snail needed to persevere all the way until the snail reached the ark. That is almost like a definition of perseverance. Eh? Just imagine that. A snail also made it onto the ark. And that is another simple example, but I think it paints the picture really well. And when we think about what happens when we persevere, what happens? We become overcomers. We become victors. We become successful. And the same applies to our spiritual lives. When we endure along this journey, we will eventually become overcomers. Now, when we overcomers, we think of the 1 John 5, the verse 4 to 5, and it reads, "For everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith. Who is it that overcomes the world? Only the one who believes in Jesus Christ is the Son of God." And that is wonderful for us. We as Christians believe in Jesus Christ. And because of our belief in Jesus Christ, we will be overcomers. We will be overcomers of what? Overcomers of the world. And that is exactly where we face our challenges. We face our challenges in the world. I ask now that I'll push play and then we can play the video. Yeah, and there you can see Rocky. I think we all are familiar with Rocky down the stairs, and then we see him do his dance once he reaches the top. And what does that show us? It shows us that when we overcome and when we reach our goal, we can be champions. Yeah? We know how Rocky had to endure and had to strive to reach his fitness levels and to reach his battle. And after that, I think we realize that when we persevere, we become victors. We celebrate in that victory of Christ. And what is the biggest difference between our perseverance here on earth versus our perseverance anywhere else? What is the difference? The difference is when we persevere here on earth, we are not certain about our outcome. We are not certain that we will achieve our goal. We're not certain that we will, what we are striving for will happen. But the difference is on our spiritual goal, that is guaranteed because Jesus Christ has already guaranteed us the goal. It is just that we need to receive that goal on the day of his return. And that is the wonderful thing about our faith as Christ, is that the goal is already guaranteed. The goal is already certain. We are already been made victorious. It is just a waiting game for us.